Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Palsies with Palsies. I'm your palsy, Justin Hancock.
And I am your palsy, Becca Marin Anderson.
At the Julian Way, we empower individuals with disabilities to thrive in faith communities by breaking barriers and fostering belonging. Your support helps us create accessible spaces where everyone feels valued and seen. Join us in making a difference today at www.thejulianway.org. Together, we can build communities of belonging.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Palsies with Palsies. I'm your palsy, Justin Hancock.
And I am your palsy, Becca Marin Anderson. Hey,
Hello,
Justin.
hey, Becca, how we doing?
Doing all right. I'm definitely awake. That's what I can say is I am not asleep right now.
Yes, awakeness is a thing that has happened. I don't know if it's happened to both of us or for both of us, but right now I'm leaning into for both of us because it seems like it was much more of a choice.
It's here. Did we request it? Did we want it? That's a different question, but it sure is here.
It is present and at least mostly accounted for. Um, woof, folks, woof.
Yeah, yeah. So this episode will be coming out um several weeks into a couple different things. I am pretty sure the last episode that came out, we recorded before we heard about the shooting of Renee Good in Minneapolis. I think the ICE raids had very much started by then, but
Yeah.
we did not know quite how bad things were or could get.
Yes,
Um,
yes. But I think we were recording, if I remember, on that day or
I think so.
the day after. We it recorded the day before that day, but I think it was actually on that day. So
I
very
think
much
it
as
was.
happened.
Yeah. And we are now recording this about a week before it will air. So we don't know what things will be like by the time this airs. Um, but I'm gonna guess ice activity will still be pretty intense and pretty bad. Um, I definitely hope that it will not have gotten worse. I can hope and pray that it will have gotten better, but it doesn't necessarily seem to be the direction things are trending. Um, and yeah, I mean, we know from knowing who our listeners are that a number of you are probably very disturbed by what's been going on, and frankly, we are also pretty disturbed about what's been going on, and really sitting with how we want to address this on the show. Justin, you want to speak
Yeah.
a little to our thought processes around that?
Yeah, you know me as an activist in the field of disability and an activist in the field of larger social justice policy. My inclination was, oh my God, I've got to say something
Mm-hmm.
as quickly as I can. And by and large, the things I posted on my own social media feed have said pretty clearly where I sit. I haven't done as much on the Julian Way feed just yet because it's that I haven't known how to approach that yet. But I think as far as talking in the context of this podcast and what we try to do here, my guiding North Star over the last couple of weeks since this excuse me, since this unfolded, and having a brother in law enforcement and cousins in law enforcement and cousins who um, work on the border.
Hmm.
I am supremely uninterested in like the angles of the video and dissecting every minutia about what she may have done wrong and what may have happened. And
Hmm.
not that I don't think that matters, but I think we can get very, very quickly wrapped up in a villain versus good person perspective that ultimately obscures the fact that a woman uh, died
Yeah.
and a life was taken by a U.S. Uh, based authority figure.
Hmm.
And probably where I stand is regardless of what you think was happening with that vehicle, they had guns and she had a whistle.
Yeah.
Uh, but all that to be said, we do have deeper thoughts on all of the social policy decisions and the response therefrom and the rhetoric around that response from the government, which we will probably get to at some point. That is my desire. But we also don't want to go off half cocked, as it were, and
Hmm.
add more volume to the discussion, as righteous as that might be. Uh, I want to make sure that we have time to be emotionally prepared for that discussion and
Hmm.
that we do the due diligence that discussion requires.
Yeah. I mean,
And
my
we're not ready. I'm not ready yet. So
Yeah, and my question, when we're covering these sorts of things on the show is always what useful thing can we bring to our listeners? What are we, because we're not a news show, we're not, our job is not to be telling you things that you are not getting from somewhere else, although that may occasionally happen. um we are a show to talk about the issues and to like offer you something that's uh you may or may not be getting in other places. And I think, frequently that's, how does this affect some of the particular communities that we're connected with, disability communities and queer communities, and what are some, and especially what are some ways that we can respond to these situations? What can we do about it? And I don't feel right now like I know what useful thing I can say about the issue itself, but I do think that we are positioned to have a conversation that is the conversation that we're going to have today about what some of the response can look like.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna echo what you just said. And it's so a lot of what we're gonna talk about may seem fundamental
Mhm.
in a way, but when people are just looking for how to exist
Mhm.
in the current climate and not let fear be the driving end of the wedge per se, I think this conversation can help, and that's what we're here to do. So,
Yeah, and so specifically what we want to talk today about is community and building community. And that as both a response to and a precursor to the kinds of violence and turmoil that we see in Minneapolis. And my way into why I feel so strongly about talking about that as a response is that's what I've been seeing in Minneapolis. A colleague of mine, Reverend Rebekah Volkel, I'll link her Substack post in the show notes. Is a UCC pastor in Minneapolis, and she's been an activist for a long time, and so has been very tapped into networks and very just ready to go immediately after this happened. And she has been describing some amazing scenes of community and care and cooperation in response to the violence and the fear in Minneapolis. She told a story about how she and a number of other activists went in the morning to a building where ICE and CBP officers were staying. And as they left the building in the morning to go about their days, these activists met them at the doors and said, "You have a choice. You don't have to be doing this. You can choose to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem." And they did this with just kindness and without any vitriol, just stating the truth and extending a genuine offer to be in a different relationship to what's happening in that city. Um,
Mm.
and she's also described these gatherings, press conferences, and protests where Somali community members have been handing out, and I'm so sorry, I'm probably going to be mispronouncing this, but sambusas. It's a Somali food that is a hand food that can be passed around, and that people have been just coming to these events with trays of sambusas to share with everyone. Um, there was one particular moment that she described where she saw a woman carrying a tray of sambusas and just stopped dead in her tracks in the street. And so Rebekah went out to go see what was going on, and this woman was afraid to keep walking because the streets were so icy, but she had made these sambusas, and she said she wanted to come out and cook in honor of the white woman who had died for Somali communities. And so Rebekah and another person came and linked arms with her, and the three of them walked together to the gathering that she was going to. And just that image of three people arm in arm, literally keeping one another safe from the ice, carrying food to share with everyone, food that Rebekah said tasted to everyone like communion. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Like that's exactly what we need in moments like this.
yeah. I um I have a colleague of mine who is, I think, still an active member of this conference, although he is serving in another conference in the Chicago, in the Greater Illinois Conference, because he serves in Chicago, and he has been making videos. Um, Walking around his neighborhood, showing off his neighborhood on his way to get his kids to and from school. Uh, Not necessarily uh, sharing about the ways they're directly countering or encountering or countering ICE, but
Mm-hmm.
just to share other stories of faith and of community in the neighborhood. And he
Mm-hmm.
told the story of the day after Renee Good was killed. That the evening before, so that evening, his church did uh did drag queen bingo with members of the community and church members alike, and how many families came to that event, and how many drag queens who otherwise wouldn't feel safe in a church space came to that event, and how his daughter won one of the bingo prizes, and
Mm-hmm.
just the utter absence uh, of judgment and the utter absence of fear exercised by both communities at play in that event. And if you know anything about Jonathan Grace, he is a large man who has always had long hair as long as I've known him and listens to death metal in his off time. But his heart is for Jesus, and his heart is for being community among the marginalized. And that was just such a stark uh, sort of cloud break and fog break to the rest of the news
Mm-hmm.
that was coming out of the like overall culture that day. And definitely since that, I just was so struck by the sense of joy and also the sense of fearlessness
Mm-hmm.
contained in that event and that expression to be a neighborhood together.
Yeah, no, I think there's and this is, just so frequently not covered by major news outlets, right? But I think that there are so many people who are responding to fear and to violence with community and joy and togetherness. And it is so powerful. It is so powerful to witness. It really seems like it's so powerful to be part of, and especially, very local community building, right? That frequently these kinds of events are very neighborhood specific, or very city specific. Um, and what it has me thinking about is, um, how do we how do we build that in our lives before something like this happens? How do we uh, make sure we have the connections that, when, if God forbid there is something like an a ice shooting in our neighborhoods, how do we make sure we know who to call to get together that bingo night, or
Yeah.
that singing march, or that gathering with bonfires and sambucas.
Yeah, I think and full disclosure, when we had this idea of this morning, because guys, we were really struggling to come to the mics today
Yeah.
and to have like we said at the beginning of the show, what the world is such a disaster right now. What can we bring that's new? And this show was largely inspired by friends of ours that are doing community things like we've already talked about, and an episode of Pantsuit Politics that was all about we're gonna react to the news, but we've got to talk about being community.
Mm-hmm.
together. And the two hosts, Beth and Sarah, on that show are from Kentucky. They're people of faith, but they've kind of walked away from aspects of evangelicalism and towards community.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a wonderful interview with a woman who speaks about community and lives in community in England, and that was just such a refreshing thing to hear. And we'll put that podcast episode in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
And the name of the book that the woman authored in the show notes as well. But we just thought, if we can do that, we can talk about community. Uh, but to answer your question, Becca, I
Mm-hmm.
think the first thing it takes is someone to step out and make a different choice and
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's very much I'm gonna be the person that goes against the tide and gets to know my neighbors and gets to know crosses the street to say hello and doesn't just say hello, says more than hello and really gets to know folks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, sorry, but that's a deliberate choice, especially
Yeah.
in days like this when there's so much fear kind of latent in the air and not on accident, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
That's what people in power and authoritarian folk want is that aspect of fear because that keeps you indoors.
Yeah.
If community is crossing the icy street to help your neighbor walk a tray full of homemade goodies to a community gathering, wherever it may be, then isolation and breaking down of that is fear that keeps you indoors. So,
Yeah.
being the first person to step out and say, no, I'm going to get to know my neighbors on both sides of the street can be a really challenging thing to do, but can
Yeah.
also be uh, for fear of sounding trite, the one spark that can really uh, start a fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And just, checking in on people, like when you know someone's name and then, something happens in your community or something's going on in the news that affects a community they're part of, reaching out and saying like, "Hey, how you doing? Like, do you need something?" Um, another thing that I hear about from Minneapolis and that I believe was going on in Chicago too was uh, you know, uh, immigrants who were very much afraid to leave their homes, right? And not in a like, my neighbors might be dangerous way, but there are literally people going to immigrant grocery stores and places of employment and detaining and arresting people. Um, and so, various volunteer groups and churches and activist organizations were making grocery deliveries
Yeah.
and and are checking in on people because they were able to know, who's in our community and and reach out and say like, are you okay? Okay, you don't feel able to leave your home. We're going to make sure you don't have to.
Yeah. And I'm struck by in this moment, and this situation was not related, although it's tangentially related now that I'm thinking about it. Just the power of a name and the power of being able to identify somebody. And before I tell this story and am not able to come up with the name, I should tell you I am horrible with names. And I tell everybody I meet, I'm going to ask you your name at least 11 times, and hopefully on the 12th time I won't need to. Um, I was coming back from the coffee shop a few days ago. I know people are shocked, as I usually am when I start a story. Um, and I was crossing the road, and the road where I crossed, the first cutout is poorly designed, so people are forever pulling up in front of it, and I have to go around them and take the long way, and it's not dangerous, but I'm able to like negotiate it.
Hmm.
Well, this day and age, a just big ass black Suburban pulled up and was completely blocking uh,
Oh,
the cutout to the point where I couldn't even get around it to go
jeez.
around. I had to go all the way back to the. But I looked up into the guy's eyes and I saw him go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Um, and I waited another cycle and I went to get my son from school. And Rebecca, God is my witness, I had not been there 12 seconds when a guy walked up to me and goes, Jesus Christ, it's you. I am so, so, so sorry for
Oh.
for what I just did to you. And and he was like, and then I saw you and I went, oh no, he's a parent from the school.
Oh.
I'm gonna see him every day. Um, and when I can't remember the guy's name, but we'll talk again because we had a delightful 15-minute conversation around our kids, around our
Mm.
neighborhood, around both doing DEI work. He's a,
Oh, amazing.
he's on the autism spectrum. Him and his one of his sons are both on the autism spectrum, Asperger's autism spectrum. I
Hmm.
mean, and it's just that sort of. I'm not gonna claim to be the best at it because I spend a lot of time doing this sort of like emotional community building for a living. So when I'm out in public, I'm listening to books or music
Hmm.
on my headphones. But it's just that sort of reminder that never take an opportunity for granted.
Yeah.
And even if your first interaction uh, is just awful and is awkward, and your reaction after that may be, yeah, listen, jerk who drove this Chevy monstrosity, how dare you? If
Hmm.
we do that and we let our first impression or even our second impression roll, sometimes we miss the opportunity to really get to know the humans behind that we live with every day. And I think
Hmm.
that's what's been so stunning about the things coming out of the neighborhoods in Chicago and uh,
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, and other places where ICE has been active is there's real people, and there are real people who are just resisting because they're choosing to exist together. And I don't think we can survive a moment like this on our own. I think we fundamentally have to be willing to connect to people in a more than superficial way to be able to get through this.
Yeah, no, I mean what that story and what you were just saying makes me think of is, I think one principle that I try to live by and that I think really helps us build community is assume best intentions. and that's sometimes really hard to do because, you know, these what we're seeing on the news is shows us not everyone has good intentions.
Yeah.
We can see that
Yeah.
pretty clearly. But if we allow that to color our perception of every single stranger and every single interaction, we will actively make our our own world a less safe place to be, our own local neighborhood and lives. And I mean that
Yeah.
both on an internal sense of like things feel a lot less safe when you perceive when you're feeling threatened by every interaction. But I also do mean like things snowball,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you are approaching an interaction with a sense of distrust and a little bit of aggression, like the other person's going to pick up on that and respond with distrust and aggression. And I don't want to blame anyone for being afraid because again, a lot of good things to be afraid of. But I think it is really helpful when we're able to put that fear in perspective and figure out like, okay, how do I keep myself safe? What are the ways in which I do need to be vigilant and do need to have a certain amount of suspicion, you know, raised in order to keep myself safe versus I trust no one and nothing.
Yeah. I think I think there is a reason that um when you see particularly ice these days, you often see them in tactical gear,
Hmm.
helmets, and some form of head covering or sunglasses.
Yep.
Because the less that the authority over them gives them humanizing features,
Hmm.
the scarier they are. It's the Darth Vader principle. It's
Hmm.
I mean it's what makes Star Wars both compelling and horrifying to somebody that's six. Because
Hmm.
literally the first thing you see on screen is this black helmeted robot that's 7 feet tall. That's both the coolest and scariest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's that same sort of principle. If we can unhuman anything, it makes it more effectively emotionally scary. So
Yeah.
whatever we can do to counter that, both within our neighbors and um, it's I heard somebody say, I'm not doing this to save or stand in front of immigrants. I am, but I'm doing this to stand in front of my neighbor John,
Yeah.
or Luke. Uh, and whatever we can do to make our world a little bit more human and just share something in common and together, I think we should absolutely endeavor to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I guess as I'm wondering if we want to start landing the plane, and I guess one final thought that I have is just maybe Justin, you and I could share a little bit about some of the community building efforts that we've been part of, beyond our work at the Julian Way. Um, how have we each built intentional community in our own lives?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have that Lisa and I identified is we have found family all over the world.
Hmm.
primarily because we lived in community for 12 years, and there's a lot of those people we keep in touch with, but primarily we have two family members that we met in community who live in Colorado, and we hang out with them once every 6 weeks. And what's so interesting about that is as we've continued to get to know them and grow with them as found family, uh, we have gotten to know their friends and their friends' struggles and
Mm,
joys. And even though we've never met many of those friends, um, because Rebekah and Nico are connected to those people, and we pray for and love Rebekah and Nico. We pray for and love their friends as well. So those
yeah.
webs of community, and when we do get a chance to meet those folks from time to time, it's like, oh yeah, you know our cousins or you know our sister, so you're our cousin, or that sort of thing. And I just think I before living in community and really opening up for that season to invest in whoever came through our doors, I don't know if I would be able to maintain that posture for this long, if that makes sense.
hmm
So that's the one that comes most readily to mind for me.
Yeah, and just to uh make the connection for our listeners, you're talking there about Rebecca Mitz, former host of this podcast.
Yes, uh, first, other dimensional Rebecca,
Exactly.
long and originally of this parish, as we like to say.
Yeah. And so it like in many ways, this podcast is an outgrowth of your intentional community.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for God's sake, Becca and I were wandering around a winter night going to a Christmas concert and saying, well, we know it'd be hilarious if we did a podcast and we call it Palsies with Palsies. And, you know,
Here we are.
uh, nearly 7 years later,
hmm
we're marching on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think for me, my building of community and being intentional about it, um, I think is something I very much learned from my parents. We've all my life I've had people in my life who were found family, who are very close friends and found family for my parents, and so then they become my family, and their kids become my family, and so that's people like my god family who live out in Kentucky, and who for many years we frequently went and did New Year's with, and it includes a family that I refer to as my pseudo parents and my pseudo brother, and we would do they would join us for Thanksgiving every year, and my dad is in a folk duo with Paul, the father in that family.
Awesome.
Yeah, Boys in Hats, go check them out. Um, but yeah, I really and I think about for many years my mom hosted an event called Kaylee that comes from an Irish tradition of gathering together to share music and stories and food, and we would do it the day after Thanksgiving, and it was just an event where we invited over all of our friends, and you could bring your friends, and and you'd bring a dish to share, and some sort of offering for the entertainment, a joke, a story, a song, and we would just gather and listen and sing, and be together. And that was that, brought together people, mostly who were relatively local, but there were people who would drive a few hours to come join us and come meet up with us for this once a year thing. Um, and so, I just have always strived, the older I get, to live into that legacy, to maintain these chosen family type connections, and to hold spaces that can welcome in new connections. And I also have chosen family all over the place. I got my seminary friends that I meet up with online every few weeks, and I have a network of partners all throughout the Northeast. Um, and I'm also thinking of, I have these very dear friends here in the Northampton area that I went to college with, and we're not always great at constant communication, and so there've been periods since we graduated from college that we weren't very much in touch, but like, when I reached out and said, "Hey, I'm thinking of moving to the Northampton area, like, I'd love to spend more time with you," they were just immediately all in, of like, "And we'll help you with this, and we'll come help you move," and
Yeah.
just it didn't matter how long it'd been, they were there. And one of them texted me yesterday and was like, "I miss you. Can we hang out?" And we were going over dates, and not sure when we can see each other. And then she was like, "I'm on my lunch break in an hour. Can I come by for lunch?" And we just did.
Awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, just I guess so. I guess my lesson would just be, um, when you make a connection, try to hold on to it, even
Yeah.
if you're out of touch for weeks or months or years. That doesn't need to mean that door is closed. You can always reach out and say, "How you doing? Anything I can do to show up in your life?"
Yep. Some of the best friends I have, I talk to every 3 to 6 months, and it's like we've been having one continuous conversation for at least 12 years.
Yeah.
Um, and that's community. So
Hmm.
when you have an opportunity to make connections, especially now, don't don't pass them up, especially when the gravitational pull of the world seems to be pulling us in the other direction.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Justin, for having this conversation with me. It's so good to get to talk about bright and beautiful things in the midst of all of this.
Absolutely, and we are gonna before we do the where you can find us, and I let Becca land the plane coming up in Policies with Policies very soon. Uh, we're endeavoring to actually have our parents on the show.
Yeah.
We're gonna work on that very soon, and to my knowledge, they've both given a tentative yes, and we just need to set it up. Now I can ask your dad about his folk music side project. So
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, where can people find us, Becca, and how can they connect?
Yeah, you can find us wherever fine podcasts can be found: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and on whatever platform you find us on. If you could go and rate us 5 stars and leave us a review, that would just be so helpful. It helps other people find us. If you know someone who you think could benefit from one of our episodes, and maybe is interested in one of the topics that we talked about, feel free to send it their way. We'd love to be able to reach more people who need and want to hear the kinds of things that we're talking about. If you have a question or a topic suggestion that you'd like us to talk about on the show, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us by email at pwp@thejulianway.org. If you visit us on thejulianway.org, you can find out more about the other work that we do. That's very much about community building. And you can also donate to support the show. Anything that you give to the Julian Way really helps us keep this show going, is so very much appreciated. And if you do none of those things, we are still so glad that you're here. You listening and being part of this community truly means so much. Thank you all so much for being part of our community, and go out and put some good into the world, friends. Take care.
Thanks, friends.
Bye.
Bye.